of Missouri Mats failed to notify the U.S. Department of Labor's Occupational Safety and Health Administration that the fatality occurred. Somebody died, and he was like, nah, I'm just not going to report it, even though that's the law.
Boss Watch. I think we're going to make this a regular segment on the show, Boss Watch, or Bosses Behaving Badly. Don't think we've come up with a name for it, but we want to do like a whole intro music and everything. We want to do the whole shebang. We don't have it ready yet, but we do have stories ready for you. And the reason for this is that, look, we are bombarded every night on the local news with stories about poor and working folk creating various crimes or committing various crimes. Allegedly, right? We get these mugshots and people haven't even been convicted yet. And some of these people are acquitted. Some of these people, the charges are dropped. And you never actually get that follow-up story, but they do have that mugshot of them on the internet forever with that article. And some people have actually not been hired because of stuff like that. But that's what, we get stuff like that every single night on the nightly news, shoplifting, stuff like this. And this is not to excuse that, but it is important to understand things in their proper context, because the reality is that bosses steal more from workers than all other property crime combined. Okay, let that sink in. Bosses, corporations take more from working people in wage theft than all other property crime combined. Workers die on the job at almost the same rate as they are killed. And in some states, the rate is actually higher. I looked this up this morning. The on-the-job fatality rate in Alabama is 5.5 per 100,000. And the murder rate in Alabama is 6.2. Okay, so every time you see a murderer, their mugshot, which is obviously okay, we should know about murderers in our community. I don't have an issue with that necessarily. But every time you see a murderer's mugshot, you should see a boss's mugshot, because that's happening at the same rate here in the state of Alabama. Okay, so let's go through these. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stories for you today. All of these in the last week. Crazy. So let's start here in Alabama. Hutchins Food Group to pay $50,000 to settle an EEOC sexual harassment lawsuit. Hutchins Food Group, owner and operator Pick and Save grocery stores in several states and headquartered in Bowling Green, Kentucky, has agreed to pay $50,000 and other relief to settle a sexual harassment lawsuit filed by the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the federal agency announced today. This is from their press release. According to the EEOC's lawsuit, Hutchins Food Group subjected female employees at the Pick and Save grocery store in Evergreen, Alabama, to frequent, unwelcome sexual touching by a regular customer of the store for several years. I mean, every word of this is just continuing to get worse. How do you allow somebody to come in and touch your employees for years and not doing anything about it? It's insane. And it's going to continue to get worse, if you can imagine that. Although female employees repeatedly complained to store supervisors, the company failed to take prompt corrective action to prevent or stop the harassment. After repeated complaints went unheeded on June 5th, 2020, one female employee called the police, who came to the store and issued the customer a trespass notice signed by the store manager. Nevertheless, the customer was still allowed to enter the store until at least September of 2020. Another 3 months, according to the lawsuit. This alleged conduct violates Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits a hostile environment based on sexual harassment in the workplace. The EEOC filed suit in U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Alabama after it completed an investigation. The 4-year consent decree resolving the lawsuit requires Hutchins Food Group to pay $50,000 to one victim of the harassment, and the company will develop or revise policies and procedures to prevent and correct sexual harassment. The company is also required to conduct annual training for employees and managers in its Evergreen store and 15 other stores in Alabama to ensure compliance with these policies and the law, and the EEOC will be monitoring the company's compliance for the duration of the decree. Crazy stuff. Years of sexual harassment. Really not good. Not good.
Totally ridiculous.
Okay, let's head over to Missouri, where the U.S. Department of Labor proposes $393,000 in fines after follow-up inspections find Verona, Missouri chemical plant continuing to endanger workers. The BCP ingredients were cited for 16 additional violations after 24 violations were issued in 2021. Less than 2 years after an investigation found dozens of serious safety and health violations at a Verona chemical plant, workplace safety inspectors with the U.S. Department of Labor identified 16 more violations, including those that put employees at risk of exposure to toxic substances such as ethylene oxide. After its January 2023 follow-up inspection, the department's Occupational Safety and Health Administration issued 4 repeat, 9 serious safety and health violations and proposed $393,798 in penalties to BCP Ingredients Incorporated, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Balcham Corporation. The agency also issued a hazard letter for inadequate medical evaluation procedures for workers exposed to ethylene oxide. In October 2021, OSHA cited the same facility for 24 serious safety and health violations. So here's specifically what they cited them for: inadequate process safety management procedures and monitoring, failing to develop an emergency evacuation plan, failing to train workers on actions to take in the event of a chemical release, exposing respirators to ethylene oxide while in storage. I mean, can you imagine, like, this is the respirator, like that's the thing that you put on to protect yourself from these gases, and they're being stored inside the gases. It's crazy. Allowing electrical safety hazards. The company has 15 days from receipt of these citations and penalties to comply, request an informal conference with OSHA's area director, or contest the findings before the Independent Occupational Safety and Health Review Commission. All right, there's another one in Missouri. Here's another bad boss in Missouri. Federal inspectors found sawmill exposed employee to the same unguarded saw that claimed the life of a 21-year-old worker only weeks earlier. Missouri Mats owner Don Gibson defied a January OSHA directive to guard a saw. Not yet a month on the job, here's what happened. Not yet a month on the job, a 21-year-old working at a sawmill operation in Brashear was learning how to operate a hurdle saw on January 11th, 2023, when he suffered fatal injuries after getting caught and pulled into the vertical edger blades as they spun. His employer, Don Gibson, owner of Missouri Mats, failed to notify the U.S. Department of Labor's Occupational Safety and Health Administration that the fatality occurred. Somebody died, and he was like, I'm just not gonna report it to OSHA, even though that's the law.
Wow.
That delayed OSHA's investigation of the incident until January 18th, 2023, and when investigators arrived at the work site, they issued Gibson a letter that required the company to protect employees from amputation hazards. I mean, that's that's so strenuous. This red tape that businesses have to go through to protect their employees from having their limbs cut off. I mean, just really unreasonable, seems to me. The letter also directed Gibson to report to OSHA that the mill had corrected the hazard. Just weeks later, like 6 weeks, 5-6 weeks later, OSHA inspectors returned on March the 1st, 2023 to continue their investigation, and when they returned, they discovered that Gibson failed to implement necessary controls and procedures for the sawmill and that his employees continued to operate the saw in the same condition that resulted in the death of his employee. The agency placed an imminent danger notice on the saw, which finally prompted Gibson to correct the sawmill's safety failure. This is not just, I'm going into a workplace that is a little bit loud. I need to put some, earpieces in, which that's serious. You do need to put earpieces in because hearing loss and tinnitus, and this is all serious stuff. But it's not something like that. It's not something like, these are not trivial matters. This is something that can kill somebody and literally killed somebody less than 2 months ago, and the boss still had not implemented any of the changes that he was ordered to by the government. Just a total lack of respect for human life, but he's not going to get arrested. You're not going to see his face on the local news behind bars. You're not going to see a local news segment talking about, there's crime in our community. He's violating the law. This guy's violating the law and killing people. But you're not going to get a segment like that on local news. That's crazy. Inspectors also learned that the company knew that sawmill operators let the vertical edger continue to spin while they were inspecting the machine. This edger is large enough to cut full logs, but they did not correct the procedure or retrain workers on how to use the machine safely. So as a result of all of this, OSHA cited the company for 2 willful, 53 serious, and 2 other than serious safety and health violations and proposed $346,954 in penalties. OSHA also placed the company in its severe violator enforcement program. While at Missouri MATS, the agency's investigators also observed workers under the age of 18 employed at the sawmill and operating heavy-powered industrial trucks, and alerted the department's wage and hour division. Federal law, in case you didn't know, prohibits minors from working in hazardous occupations. Just really, really crazy stuff. So here's specifically what investigators identified and cited the person for. Saw blades, pulleys, belts, woodworking machines, and grinding wheels without machine guards. Inadequate lockout, tagout procedures to isolate energy during service maintenance. The company also failed to establish and follow proper procedures for controlling hazardous energy, exposing employees walking and working on surfaces and near unguarded holes to fall hazards, failing to provide required guardrails, insufficient training and evaluation of operators of powered industrial vehicles, failing to maintain portable fire extinguishers and not having a work training program on their use, exposing workers to the risk of electrical hazards, allowing improper use of ladders, lacking a hearing conservation program, failing to provide personal protective equipment for eyes, face, head, and feet, not labeling chemicals as required, improperly storing cylinders and equipment, failing to provide required safety information and training to employees. And it just keeps going. If that's not enough, these incidents are not even the first time that this company has failed to comply with federal workplace safety and health laws. In 2012, OSHA investigated another fatality, at a logging site operated by Don Gibson, as well as a sawmill owned by Gibson in Arbella, Missouri. The company has 15 days from receipt of the citations and penalties to comply. Not going to see his mugshot.
Right.
Let's head over to North Carolina, where the Department of Labor recovers $119,000 in back wages for 72 workers after North Carolina home care employer misclassifies them as contractors. The investigation found that the provider of day and overnight home health care to the sick and elderly in the Wilson, North Carolina area misclassified employees as independent contractors and paid them straight time rates for all hours worked. By doing so, the employer did not pay the affected workers their additional half-time premium rate for overtime hours over 40 in a work week, which is a violation of the Fair Labor Standards Act. In addition, the employer failed to keep accurate pay records. On background, from 2020 to 2022, the Wage and Hour Division investigators identified violations in nearly 90%. 90% of the more than 1,200 home care and nursing care investigations. These reviews led the agency to recover more than $16.2 million in back wages and liquidated damages for more than 13,000 workers. In addition, the division assessed employers a total of $156,404 in civil money penalties. Crazy stuff. We've got one more. Let's talk about Dollar General in Tampa, Florida. This is the last story in Boss Watch, and then we're going to go to a break. The Department of Labor finds Dollar General continues to endanger workers as inspectors cite 8 violations at Tampa stores, proposed $342,000 in penalties, and on background, the national discount retailer has faced more than $21 million in proposed penalties just since 2017. So this story, federal workplace safety inspections at 2 Tampa area Dollar General stores found that the company was again exposing employees to fire hazards and other unsafe conditions, continuing the long history of disregard for worker safety by one of the nation's largest discount retailers. The U.S. Department of Labor's Occupational Safety and Health Administration issued citations for 2 repeat violations after a January 18th, 2023 inspection at a Brandon store which identified exit routes blocked and electrical hazards. Inspectors also found the store did not have a working employee restroom and left another restroom sewer drain uncovered, which created a trip hazard and no doubt smelled great. 2 days later, in Dade City, Florida, OSHA inspectors found an emergency exit blocked by rolling containers and merchandise, which exposed the workers to fire and entrapment hazards. After these inspections, OSHA issued citations to Dollar General Corporation for 3 repeat, 2 serious, and 3 other than serious violations and proposed penalties of $342,282. Since 2018, the company has faced more than $21 million in fines after more than 243 inspections nationwide. Between February 1st, 2022 and April 20th, 2023, in Alabama, Florida, and Georgia alone, inspectors assessed Dollar General nearly $10 million in proposed fines after more than 30 investigations. And you may be thinking, wow, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. $10 million in a year, $21 million in 6 years. How is Dollar General going to afford that? Is the government going to put Dollar General out of business? Is OSHA really just kind of being too much here?
Are they?
Are they? In just the last year alone, okay, have that number in your mind, $21 million for all this over the last 6 years. In the last year alone, Dollar General made more than $3.3 billion in profits.
Oh.
Huh. So $21 million out of 3.3, that's just 1 year, and these are over 6 years. These are 6 years of violations, and that's 1 year of profits. What is 21 million divided by $3.3 billion in profit? I don't know, but it's not a lot, is the answer. That's not a lot. But I'm sure they're gonna change, surely. After more than 200 failed inspections, Dollar General cannot claim that they misunderstood federal safety requirements, said OSHA Area Director Danelle Gendra in Tampa, Florida. Yeah, obviously. Crazy stuff there. But you know, the capitalist class are betters. They run society, actually, is what I'm told. They're the job creators. They make society run. And they're just, I mean, they're just so good. That's what I'm always told. So, yeah, there we go. That's Boss Watch. So we're gonna be doing that, I think, pretty regularly. And in the chat, there's a lot of people that are rightly surprised. Wage theft accounts for about $50 billion a year in the U.S., says Infinite Content. Pretty sure that is that's from a study from the Economic Policy Institute. Yeah, really crazy stuff. Ron M says, no apologies for stealing from the boss, but why is it that when a boss deliberately steals from your paycheck, there is no chance they'll ever see the inside of a jail? That's because the bosses, they created the laws. They bought the politicians. That's the long and short of it. You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.